Welcome to Discovering the Law. My name is Lucy Rivera, and today we have a very special guest. We have First Justice Mark Coven. He is the First Justice of Quincy District Court. Episodes of this interview can be viewed at www.discoveringthelaw.com. Thank you for being with us today. Your Honor, thank you for being our guest.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Your Honor, would you like to talk about district courts today?
Sure. The district courts are probably in terms of people accessing the court system, the district courts are the primary place where normal citizens, normal people in the community, regular people seeking justice would come before the district courts. There are 62 district courts throughout Massachusetts, and there is a separate system for the city of Boston that has the Boston Municipal Court, which are eight separate courts within the city limits that do the same work that we do in the district courts. We're just outside the city of Boston. As I've indicated, it's really a place where the people who are in need of justice, or either for a criminal side of business or the civil side of business, would access the justice system. We consider ourselves to be the People's Court. We're in communities throughout Massachusetts, and we really try and reflect the needs of the people in those communities and try and serve the communities where we're located.
And what is the structure of the district courts?
The district courts handle both criminal and civil business.
Yes.
Unlike some of the specialized courts like the land court, the housing court, the juvenile court, we handle all types of cases, both criminal and civil cases. We provide jury trials on both criminal and civil side of the business of the courts. As I said, we're located throughout Massachusetts. The Quincy District Court, for example, serves 7 different cities and towns. So some district courts are larger than others and will serve more cities and towns. So we go all the way from Braintree and Weymouth through Quincy to Milton, Randolph, Holbrook. So district courts may serve several different communities. Some district courts are smaller than others. They might serve one town. There might be one judge in that court, or maybe 2 judges in that court. The Quincy court, for example, has 4 judges on any given day. So they vary in size and structure, but handle the same types of cases.
And when you talk about the jurisdiction of the district court in terms of criminal and civil, tell us a little bit more about that with the judges.
Okay. So on the criminal side of business, we handle all cases concurrent with the Superior Court, except for what's called capital cases. And capital cases are homicide cases, murder cases, rape cases, cases where people could be sentenced to life imprisonment. We don't handle trafficking cases, but on the criminal side, we'll handle all other types of criminal cases, including drug distribution cases, possession with intent to distribute drugs, sexual assault cases, including indecent assault and batteries. And we offer jury trials just the way Superior Court does, although our juries tend to be 6-person jurors as opposed to 12-person jurors. On the civil side, we offer civil trials with a jurisdictional limit of $25,000. That's likely to be raised. I think the Chief Justice of the Supreme Judicial Court has announced that it's his intention and hope to raise the jurisdictional limit to $50,000, doubling the amounts in controversy that the district courts could handle. But we do a host of other things, not just trial work on either the criminal or civil side. We're responsible for issuance of domestic violence restraining orders, criminal harassment orders, we have a significant problem of drugs and alcohol in the communities that we serve. We're the courts that's responsible for receiving petitions for involuntary commitments of people with substance abuse addictions. So we really try and respond to the needs of our respective communities.
Your Honor, you mentioned the drugs right now that affect the court. What are the what are the type of drugs or that affect Quincy District Court that you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to me, and I've been on the bench for some time now, that people in the last 2 years are talking about the opioid epidemic, essentially the epidemic of heroin and heroin overdoses. We've seen that, and I've been talking about that issue for years now. That's not a new issue to us. Heroin has been a very big issue. It's cheap, it's easily processed, it's easily ingested. Much before anybody started talking about this, it's, you know, it starts with a lot of people who become addicted to pain medications, whether they're prescribed certain opiate-based pain medications like Oxycontin or oxycodone or Percocets, or Vicodin or other benzodiazepines for their pain, and then they become addicted to heroin, which is a lot cheaper than buying those drugs. Or they steal drugs from their cabinets of the medicine cabinets from their parents. But it's been an ongoing problem that we've tried to address in our court, and I think all district courts have attempted to address well before this became what is now a well-recognized problem with the governor's substance abuse task force and other things. This was an issue that we've recognized and have been talking about for many years now. And I don't want to underscore or underestimate the problems of alcohol. You know, alcohol is a tremendously addictive substance that has led to a lot of domestic violence. It's led to a lot of criminal activity. It's led to a lot of family abuse of children. And so we try and address all the addictive substances, not just concentrating on heroin or cocaine or crack or amphetamines, but alcohol as well.
And Your Honor, on that vein, you said that to address those issues, there's some courts that are set up to address those issues. Would you talk about those?
Yeah, the courts in Boston, particularly the South Boston District Court, was one of the first courts, not only in this state but nationally, to establish a drug court. Drug court is not really a separate court, it's a session within the court. And in 2000, we began our drug court, so it's been ongoing for 15 years now. And it's really designed to provide maximum supervision to people who are addicted to either drugs and alcohol, who have not put together long periods of sobriety, maybe for their whole adult life. They may have been in and out of houses of correction or state prison based on their addictions. And it's really designed to try and find alternatives to just incarcerating people. As I've indicated, we've been doing this for some time. But one of the important messages of our drug court session and the district courts and the Boston Municipal Court is that not only do we reflect the problems in our community, whether it's drugs or alcohol or domestic violence or mental illness, but we require the relationships that we have with the communities, with families in the communities, with human services providers. So what our drug court has done over the years is worked closely hand in glove with treatment providers that are independent of the court, funded predominantly through the Department of Public Health or the Department of Mental Health, who provide substance abuse services. And we work with them not only in assigning people who are placed on probation into those treatment programs, but we require, or we work with them to report any problems. We work with providers if someone's relapsed, which I understand is part of the whole cycle of addiction, but we require them to report to us, and then the individual who's in the drug court has to report weekly to be supervised. So we have specially assigned probation officers who are assigned to the drug court. They monitor people both in court. They monitor their urine screens weekly to test for drugs and alcohol, and they work closely with the treatment providers. Now, our drug court is a little stricter, a little more harsh than maybe some other sessions. We actually require people as a condition to entering our drug court to enter a 6-month residential treatment program as a condition of entering. And they see us weekly, they come to us weekly, and then they're on probation for another year after they finish that. So they're on probation for a full 18 months and monitored for a full 18 months. If there's one thing that we've learned about addictions is the longer someone's being monitored under supervision and the strict supervision of our probation department, then the more likely they are not to relapse and to stay sober for longer periods of time. Yes,
Your Honor, it's a very important specialty court, but you mentioned other specialty courts.
Right, so what we've learned from the drug court is that if we could address people's particular needs, then we can hopefully have better outcomes for people in the long term. So recently, in the last few years, there's been a movement both in this state and nationally to establish mental health courts as well, and that is similar in structure to drug courts in the sense that they require maximum supervision by a judge and by our probation staff. But there are people who may have mental illnesses who come in and out of the mental health system. So they might not consistently go to their treating psychiatrist, to their outpatient mental health treatment, their counseling, their group sessions, and more likely than not, they may not remain on their medications. And so, similar to the drug court, we have one judge who's assigned who biweekly meets with people in our mental health court, all suffered from a diagnosed mental health condition. Again, the design or the goal of it is to keep people in treatment as long as we possibly can, to help them learn the tools to continue to receive their treatment, to address their mental health problems without the intervention of the court or the criminal justice system. I will tell you that there are a number of other specialty courts that have been established. I think the next most significant is the Veterans Court that a number of courts have now established. There is one in Norfolk County that's in the Dedham District Court. And again, it's for people who are veterans, who may come home from a conflict, suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, may have received a traumatic head injury, may become addicted to substances, and are committing criminal offenses. All these people, whether it's the drug court, the mental health court, or the Veterans Court, are all people who are placed on probation after committing criminal acts. And in the past, some of those people might have just gone to the House of Correction. They may present a real danger to the community. They may present a real danger to their families, to their wives, their spouses, to their children. And rather than simply incarcerating those people, I think the court system has recognized both in terms of the human needs and the economic needs. I mean, it's much less costly to keep someone in the community and hope that they could regain productive lives and return to work and take care of their families than it is simply to incarcerate someone. So all these courts are designed to do that. All these people are on probation. They all have probation officers that are dedicated public servants that meet with them regularly, go out to their communities, might go out to their workplaces, that speak to their treatment providers, that speak to victims to make sure that they're no longer in danger or not continuing danger, and really monitor the progress of people, and with the design of keeping them out of jail and in the community whenever possible.
It's really great work, Your Honor. It's fascinating. For our viewers, our guest today is Quincy District Court First Justice Mark Coven, and we are talking about the district courts. Your Honor, when you talked about commitments, you just talked about the voluntary commitments or involuntary commitments.
Right.
Yeah.
So what I mentioned before is that there are a number of ways that we address addictions, whether it's drug addiction or addiction to alcohol. And there are people in the community whose families are falling apart because their child, their wife, their parent are undergoing a very serious addiction. And people are desperate. They don't know what do you do when you find out your son is or your daughter is heroin addicted. And you know, what we see now, what I think is seen as a lot of communities, are particularly young women between the ages of 18 and 25 who become addicted to heroin, who may overdose and receive Narcan treatment to revive them, but then go on to continue to be addicted, and unfortunately some overdose and die. And I can't tell you the number of parents that I've met with and listened to, and if you're an empathetic, compassionate person, it breaks your heart to listen to these families who are desperate. They don't know what to do. They don't know where to turn. They don't know what can be done. It is not an underestimate to say that they're desperately afraid their child could be dead the next day. And one of the powers that the district courts and the Boston Municipal Court have is to receive petitions from family members, have that person evaluated by a forensic court clinician, a psychologist or social worker that's qualified to evaluate people through the Department of Mental Health, who are at the courts themselves, and determine whether that person should be involuntarily committed for a period of up to 90 days to receive treatment, whether they want to receive treatment or they don't want to receive treatment, and hopefully not just end that treatment at 90 days, but to get them on the path of a longer-term recovery. So the goal is not just to detox that person, but to get them into the treatment system over a long period of time, whether it's to then transfer them from a detox facility to a short-term holding facility where they could then wait until they could find a long-term halfway house, a 6-month program where they could live and have meetings in their house and be monitored and urine screened, and where we know that they could be confident that they're staying sober. And keep in mind, these are not necessarily people who have criminal cases pending. A lot of these people may not, and they may have been working, they may seem fine in the community, but their life starts to unwind, and they become addicted to drugs, and they go down a different path, and they may lose their jobs, they may lose their families, they may lose everything. They may lose their lives. You know, it's very sad it is not an uncommon occurrence in our communities for young people, mostly, as I said, 18 to 25, 30 years old, who will overdose and die. I mean, when people say it's an epidemic, it is an epidemic, just the way any disease is. And there's been over 1,000 people who have overdosed and died, had fatalities in the last year alone. And so I think it's something that we've tried to address, that we've tried to be available as a court system, as a place where people can turn to. People don't know where to turn to. You know, we're very lucky in Quincy. The Quincy Police Department was, I think, one of the first police departments in Massachusetts to provide Narcan to their officers, to respond when someone is overdosing and bring them back to life. I mean, they literally bring people back to life using Narcan. The mayor of Quincy has been very committed developing a community response, particularly for young people, and working with the substance abuse community. Our court officers, we've had people who have ended up in our holding facilities, our lockup facilities, actually in the court shooting up heroin, who've gotten smuggled in drugs through the security system, through the other court officers, and actually have been found. We've had people overdosing in our lockup who shot up before coming to court or before being arrested and being brought into the cell blocks. And so now our court officers are trained to use Narcan as well. So, you know, it's a major problem. Our job is to save people's lives, to hopefully help them regain better lives, to provide some security in families, to give hope to families, to give hope to the addicted people. You know, what we've seen in our drug court is that people who could make it through our drug court after 18 months have a totally different perspective on life. They have some hope. They have learned the tools to stay sober. They probably have a sponsor and attend Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous on a regular basis. The recovery community is very sophisticated on the South Shore and in Boston and Massachusetts in general. And so hopefully our job is to put them in the right direction, to give them the tools and the knowledge and the desire to stay sober. Some of these people have been in and out of jails their whole lives. They might not have put together a period of sobriety for more than weeks or months at the most before they relapse. And, you know, we do our best to try and intervene in that downward spiral.
Your Honor, it's alarming, and the work that you're doing is not only commendable but difficult. And on the 2 minutes that we have left in the program, Your Honor, would you, well, they're asking me to wrap up, but what are your final thoughts on this, since we ran out of time, unfortunately?
No, I just, you know, I want people to understand there's been a lot of talk about less incarceration and looking for alternatives to incarceration and to give people hope for a better future. And that's what the district courts are all about. I mean, I think that is the wave of the future, both for financial reasons, but for humane reasons. And we're in our communities, and we're dedicated to our communities, and we're dedicated to helping as many families and individuals that we can.
Thank you, Your Honor. For our viewers, we appreciate you watching. Today, Quincy District Court's First Justice, Mark Coven, is our guest. This episode can be viewed again at www.discoveringthelaw.com. My name is Lucy Rivera, and I really appreciate your time today. Thank you for watching.